I'd love to introduce our next speaker. Tim, I have had the chance to know for going on a year now. And I've got to see him at quite a few talks. He was here last year. He was at B-Side St. Louis, and he is back. Tim MalcomVetter is head of Red Team for a very large organization, and is dealing with quite a few issues that none of us will ever deal with, yet in some ways, no matter how big the organization, the problems are all the same. This talk, when I first said this, I said this is general session right here. So please give a warm round of applause to my friend Tim MalcomVetter.
Thanks, man. Thanks a lot. Yeah. Thanks. Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me okay? All right, so I would love to actually do one thing real quick just to show you. That's right, that's 149 slides. I know what time it is, and I know this time of day to keep you guys going. ADHD, we're on it, so these are real fast. So now the trick is, how do I switch back? Where's my cursor? There it is. There we go. All right. All right, so how do I inadvertently outsource my IT job to a fancy bear? I actually gave myself notes to make sure I wanted to cover a couple things before we get started. First off, let's thank Dave and Renee and all the Parameter for putting this on. It's a big deal. I've actually, let's get that going, right? Yeah. I can tell you, so I got to participate in hosting a little con in a small little place in the neck of the woods, and it was a ton of work. And it's not like this where you've got multi-tracks, 2 days. I just can't even imagine the chaos and the stress. And you guys pull it off and you do it well. So thanks very much for doing that. Also want to thank Dave and Jason for being my warm-up acts tonight. Just kidding. I come to the conclusion I'm not batting cleanup. I'm actually just the pitcher. And I'm also the last thing between you and party time. So I'm very much aware that these 149 slides are going to be either entertaining or something, right? Right, there we go. Another thing that was really interesting. So I got this question on the blue from a genuine, actual pen tester red teamer the other day. Genuinely asked me, real concern. Do you ever worry about blue teams getting so good that the red team won't be successful? Do you worry about keeping up and everything? And I sat and thought about it for a second. I was like, yeah, maybe. And then I pondered a little bit. I'm like, wait a minute. That implies that we're going to solve the security problem, right? I'm not worried about that anytime soon. But and it's things like this that kind of keep me up at night, making me think about it. So I hope that you enjoy it. And I know that Jason picked on Bob from accounting and engineering. I'm unfortunately got another Bob, but he's from Verizon. So let's get to him here in just a second. So anyway, I'm local. I'm born and raised in St. Louis. I lived several years in Kansas City, so I've got the show me cred, hopefully, for you guys. 15 years, a defender, builder, breaker, and right now, like you said, I'm very fortunate to work for a company that is for 5 years in the last 5 years in a row, Fortune 1 on the Fortune 500. It turns out that we are actually generating so much revenue that we actually exceed Apple, Amazon, Google, Starbucks, and Sears combined. You put them all together, and we have more revenue than that. It's just crazy humbling to work for an organization this cool and with this much power to do so many good things just for the industry. And I thank them for allowing me to be here today, even though I'm here on my own, right? So if you took all of our revenue, in case you can't figure this out, I'm expecting some Googling. And there. So do some Googling, figure that out. But while you're thinking about this, so if you take our revenue and you actually stack it up against the gross domestic products of all the nations in the world, we would come in like the 25th largest economy, right? So we kind of joke internally that we were like around Sweden's, nation state APT when we talk about our RIT team, even though Sweden probably has way better resources than us. But it's just kind of fun to kind of play with that. But this is the kind of size we're talking about for this organization, so it's a great playground. I've been a presenter in a bunch of different places. This is my second time here with ShowMeCon. I thank you guys for letting me come back. And I spent way too much time in school, including a bunch of University of Missouri campuses, so that's more show me cred. And if you're into all of this kind of thing, which I'm normally not, you don't my FICO credit score is probably on LinkedIn. And unfortunately, I do not have an industrial golf band. That's a nice hat tip too. I had to slip this in. That's a nice hat tip to our friend earlier. So anyway, so some fine print before we get going. What's the line for, anyone remember the line from this movie where he said, no indemnity clauses, never among friends, or what, right? So that's what we're going to do here. So, Gonna get this out of the way. Presentation represents my personal opinion and in no way reflects any official opinion of my employer. Okay? So anything that I tell you, take at your own risk. Please do not run with scissors. And the horse is now dead. Okay? Who remembers this story? Anybody remember this headline? A Verizon employee outsourced his job to China. You guys remember this? No?
Is very popular in America. Companies outsource manufacturing to places like China. They outsource services, including call centers, to places like India. American companies outsource jobs all the time. But some Americans took outsourcing to a whole new level by getting someone in China or elsewhere to work under their name and credentials. One of America's largest broadband and telecommunications companies, Verizon, most recently caught one software developer doing exactly that. Someone they refer to as Bob paid a software consulting firm in China less than 1/5 of his six-figure salary to do his job. Bob gave them all the codes necessary to access the critical infrastructure company's internal system. So while the Chinese were ransacking the internal system of a critical infrastructure company in the US, Bob devoted his work time to Facebook, Reddit, eBay, and cat videos. Seriously, his browsing history revealed that's what filled Bob's typical workday. Apparently, Bob had the same scam going across multiple companies, earning several $100,000 a year and only paying the Chinese consulting firm about $50,000 annually. At one of the companies, he reportedly received excellent performance reviews for the last several years in a row, even being hailed the best software developer in the building. It was a sweet deal for Bob, which is apparently not his real name, until Verizon revealed the breach by accident when they received a request from a U.S. company asking for help in understanding anomalous activity it was witnessing in its private network, an open and active connection from Shenyang, China. We hear the U.S. constantly complain about Chinese hackers, but apparently with employees like Bob, who needs hackers?
I love that line. With employees like Bob, who needs hackers, right? So, did anyone not remember that story or never heard this? Is it the first time? Anybody? A handful of you? Okay. So, this is actually straight out of the forensic report. Like, this is his typical day. 9 a.m., arrive and surf Reddit, lunch. He's just like the most unprotected person in the world, but I don't know whether to be upset at him or kind of be like, wow, that was amazing. How did you pull that off, right? So, why are we even talking about this Bob guy? Table that for a second. We'll come back to it in a second, right? So, who remembers this? Does that logo ring a bell with anybody? Is this a first time you've seen it? Is anyone, if you've seen it before? Okay, we got at least like one hand. What about this version? You remember seeing this version? Okay, a couple. Maybe you remember this. Oh, hang on. Play. There we go.
Is that the hacking groups responsible go by the names Cozy Bear and Fancy Bear. Cozy Bear. Hold on, Jimmy, wait a second. Jimmy, put up a picture of Vladimir Putin. Cozy Bear! Now put up Trump. Fancy Bear! Oh my God, it all makes sense! Even more suspicious. Even more suspicious than that. Even more suspicious. Putin was recently spotted hunting Trump's next hairpiece.
It's always fun to pick on politicians. I'm an equal opportunist in that regard, so we'll pick on all of them. This is actually my favorite of the images from that time frame. Love the Care Bears throwback to the Cozy Bear, Fancy Bear. But if you don't remember these, maybe you remember these images. The Dukes, do you ever see these? This is another name that went out of another threat intel group, another report. And if you haven't seen any of these, you've probably seen this. Anyone, does this look familiar to any of you? No? What about this version? It's the same report, the same PDF that came out of our nice three-letter agencies, right? So, my favorite thing about these reports is, thanks for the fresh report graphics. We're going to borrow those, and that's going to be every single pen test report ever this point forward, right? That's the best imagery I've ever seen in nice and conclusive and, 3 colors and all that. So it's pretty cool. So if you guys remember this whole story, let's talk about the adversary TTPs, tactics, techniques, and procedures from that particular event, right? It was really simple. Bad guys fished for creds. By the way, again, we're just stealing these images straight out of that report. They then logged in with these creds. They mimicatsed all the things. They moved laterally. There was more mimicatsing. They eventually got domain admin, created some golden tickets, but mind you, those golden tickets were for persistence only. That wasn't their objective, right? And I call this out on purpose. We'll get to that in a second. Then they exfilled all the data. They got out of there. And the important thing to know is this was nice and low and slow, right? This wasn't a fast, like in your face, kind of we're gonna get this all done inside of, an hour. This was a nice, slow, deliberate thing. And we see this all the time with breaches, right? Breaches tend to go low and slow. You look at the Sony attack, same thing, low and slow. But yet, when we have pen testers that you hire or that are on staff or whatever that do your stuff, this is what they tend to do, right? They go straight after that domain admin and they think, hey, I'm simulating a bad guy, right? I got domain admin. But domain admins only go after that. Pen testers only go after domain admin as a means to an end. That is not their objective, right? We get that out of hand all the time. So in many ways, we just need to get past this and move past this domain admin fixation, except for, we'll talk about a reason why not in just a minute. So today, this is the objective. But at the same time, the dichotomy here is we're going to compare to this king of the hill thinking, this is what this is, right? I'm king of the hill, I'm king of the enterprise, I'm king of the domain. We're going to think about this in other ways. So what other places do we see king of the hill TTPs? Who's familiar with CCDC, Cyber Collegiate Defense Competition? That's a shame. You guys should be involved in looking and recruiting people out of these programs. These college students that do this are amazing. They come out, it's a great experience for them. I wish it was around when I was in school. This is the 2017 the bracket. I had the pleasure of running the red team for the Southwest region. If you see down there, University of Tulsa was actually the team that won. We gave them so much of a hard time. I literally had them on video singing "I'm a Little Teapot" to ransom back their network at one point. Okay, it was horrible. And I was not allowed to keep the video, otherwise it would be here, right? I can't share it. But I like to think we did a really good job with them. I'm going to give them a hat tip, even though there's no one probably here from that school or whatever. They went on and took second place in nationals, and I want to say, yeah, that was probably because we gave them a really, really, really hard time and really stepped up their game to get them ready for the national level. So that was a good thing. So we're real big fans of this program. Alex Levinson's a guy that's on the national CCDC red team. And this is a tweet from during this time frame. So look at me, I'm the captain now. That's a reference to that Tom Hanks movie with the Somali pirates. And basically this is, hey, I've taken over stuff. This is this king of the hill mentality. We see it here. We see it in pen tests. We don't really see it in the real breaches, right? This is not necessarily the goal of the breach, right? The adversaries aren't here to just, hey, commandeer all the things. But we do see that in one really, really cheesy, graphic way, in ransomware, right? But here's the thing. Ransomware today is commodity, okay? Ransomware is small scale. And by the way, when I came up with this talk and this idea, it was way before WannaCry, so I apologize that you guys have heard this probably a billion times today and yesterday and for the last several weeks, so I'm sorry. But it's small scale now, right? So we've got examples of this. Has anyone seen this one before? This is a nice tweet of this guy whose smart TV got taken over by ransomware. Has anyone seen that? No? Here.
I know this takes a while. Imagine you're waiting to try to flip this to a DVD or something. You have to sit and wait for it to boot. Alright, so Android finally booted, and then the malware kicks in. And this is the common FBI, I don't know what you call this, but it's just trying to trick you into thinking that the FBI's got you. This is ransomware, I guess, but I don't think they actually released your device. And they want $500, I guess. The TV is inoperable, no matter what I press, menu, excuse me, I have a cold. It's basically, the TV can't be changed, or nothing can be done with it. The only thing I could get it to do is I could use the gesture mode to bring up the mouse pointer, but I can't move it past the middle of the screen, so I can't even get to anything where I might even ask, I might figure out who I'm supposed to, which scammers I'm supposed to give money to. So the TV I thought was bricked, no way around it. So I hop on Twitter and I complain about it. And like a day or two later, it catches on like wildfire.
So thanks to the power of Twitter, this guy did get his TV replaced by the manufacturer, so that's nice, right? But this is weird, right? This commodity ransomware, it's not even aimed at this smart TV. This smart TV just happened to be running a version of Android, and who knows what he was doing before that actually got this on there, but there it is, right? Who remembers this one? The San Francisco Muni, the rail system. Okay. Here, quick video. Hang on. There we go.
So we were a victim of a ransomware attack.
They hit on Friday when hackers gained access to Muni's computers and in the process blocked programs dealing with everything from payroll to tracking Muni bus locations.
How much did they want?
They want about $73,000 or 100 Bitcoin.
Did you pay?
We have never considered paying the ransom, and nor do we intend to pay it.
But it did cost. As a precaution, Muni decided to shut down all of its fare gates, in effect giving away thousands of rides over the weekend.
To minimize any impact to our customers.
Former FBI agent and KPIX security analyst Jeff Harp says attacks like this are common, but aren't always made public.
It's a spray attack, and they're not necessarily targeting Muni specifically. They're targeting a lot of different things at one time. And it's sort of like, you throw a big net out there, you're going to catch a few fish.
Yeah, I love this line. Not necessarily targeting, right? So we knew this. This is not like this malware was designed for Muni. They just happen to be running Windows on important things, and it just happened to get hit, right? So this is an example of commodity ransomware that ended up on an enterprise system. So here's the question. 100 Bitcoin for all of San Francisco Muni, even with today's prices, is that really what the Muni's worth? Who thinks that, that should be the price to take over the Muni and run it? Who would be willing to pay more than that if they were heading to various, I would imagine there's a lot of adversaries that think, hey man, if I realize what I got, maybe that'd be worth a little bit more, right? So, of course that leads us to WannaCry. Any vendors still left? That fell flat. Really? You guys are still wanting to spend money because of WannaCry? Okay, never mind. That's your budget. So you guys all know this one, and this is probably going to hit too close to home for a lot of people, right? But we're going to watch it anyway. Or not, if I can click.
It looked at first like an attack just on hospitals in the UK, but it's now becoming clear that this malicious software has run riot around the world. Russia, the United States, and many points in between have been hit by what's now a common form of cybercrime.
Ransomware has become a tool of choice for an awful lot of criminals simply because it's very, very easy to make money very quickly. You can buy ransomware online for as little as $39.
Yeah, so you can buy ransomware kits online for $39. Who knew that? Okay, the better question is how many of you didn't know that, right? Here's another coverage I want to get in.
A major cyber attack forcing hospitals across the UK to turn away patients. The British National Health Service saying computer systems were impacted, but there's no evidence that patient data was actually compromised. The attackers apparently are demanding the hospital pay a ransom to get their files back. Officials now telling patients not to go to the hospital unless it is an emergency. The Spanish government also reporting cyber attacks on some of its computers.
Again, this attack is not new to you guys. You guys are all familiar with this. But the key thing is, I like to hone in on this one phrase. There was no evidence the patient data was compromised. So the question is why? Why is that? Why are they not? I mean, that's where the value is, right? Everyone that's not in healthcare that's sitting in this room probably knows that's the single most valuable thing they've got in a healthcare system, right? So the question is, why is this commodity ransomware that ends up on an enterprise system not really even aware that it's there, right? Why is it not aware the target has actually got? So when it comes time for commodity ransomware defense, what do we tell everybody, right? We tell them, back up your stuff, and then restore your backups when it happens, no big deal. Yet somehow we still have, we've all worked for places that don't do this to the level we'd like, right? But you gotta ask the question, what's gonna happen if the attackers actually knew the true value of their targets? At some point, this is gonna happen. So there's this great little history lesson about a story about Julius Caesar way back 2,000 years ago. I got this story passed on to me from Jeremiah Grossman, and I told him flagrantly I was going to steal this, and I found this really cool animation of the story that'll tell it better than I can.
Hello and welcome back to History Buff. In this episode of History Hiccups, we'll be covering one of history's most narcissistic rulers, Julius Caesar, and more specifically, his capture by the Sicilian pirates. Initially, the pirates, not realizing who they had captured, had demanded a ransom of 20 talents of silver, around $600,000 nowadays. This would not do for Caesar. Only 20 talents for a man of his standing? Caesar laughed at their demand and demanded they ask for 50 talents of silver instead.
Yeah, so get the ransom price right? No, not 20 talents, you gotta have 50, right? Do you know who you're talking to? And by the way, that's $1.5 million in today's money. And also keep in mind, this is early in his career. He was 25 years old at the time, right? So this is not Caesar in his prime, this is Caesar in his beginning. So first lesson, right, is know your target. But hold on. Does anyone know how the story ends?
While this 38-day transaction was taking place, Caesar befriended these pirates by joining them in their games and exercises. Right under the nose of these pirates, a prisoner, had more rights than they did. Caesar was going so far as to sending his servants to tell him to be quiet when he went to sleep. When he swore he'd hunt them down and kill them when he escaped, the pirates assumed he was joking. He was a friend after all. He often joked around with these pirates. However, after Caesar was returned to Rome, he quickly rallied a small fleet to crush these pirates. He was a man of his word after all, and he swore to kill these pirates who had captured him. Upon arriving and finding that the pirates had not left as he had requested, he captured the lot and took back his 50 talents of silver. The pirates were then handed over to the proconsul of Asia. After the proconsul refused to execute these pirates, Caesar went personally back to the capital himself, took the pirates away from the proconsul, and had them crucified.
Yeah, so second lesson, don't mess with Caesar, right? But you gotta love that, right? You gotta love the gall there, because he's like, hey, you didn't even get the price right. You gotta be asking for more. And by the way, I'm gonna kill you. And we're buds. But I'm really gonna kill you. And eventually he really did, right? So what are the lessons we can take away from this 2,000-year-old story? So I sit here and I hear this, and I've been thinking about this for a while, and I was like, well, man, what if ransomware actually figured out that it's on an enterprise target? Who remembers the term fire sale? Okay? This lovely little Die Hard movie, the Die Hard 4 or 5 or whatever number it is, it turns out there's a wiki out there, and I know it's probably hard to see on there, but I was Googling for the word fire sale to show something really cool for all of you. And wouldn't you know it, I didn't make this comment on the wiki. I swear that I didn't make this comment on the wiki, but it lines up perfectly. Because I'm looking at it during the ransomware thing, this whole epidemic with WannaCry, and I'll read the small print. It says, it seems familiar to WannaCry ransomware that's happening now. Right? So here, in case you're not properly cultured of early 2000s movies, cinema. Whoops.
My fellow Americans, it is time to strike fear into the hearts of citizenry. Ask not. It's an unauthorized broadcast. What your country can do to avert this crisis. And the answer is nothing whatsoever. Our military strength is, in this case, useless. Read my lips. The great confident roar of the American progress and growth has come to an end. All the vital technology that this nation holds dear, all communications, transportation, the internet, connectivity, electrical power, critical utilities, their fate now rests in our hands. We will not tire, we will not falter, and we will not fail. I don't know how they're getting in. Thank you. And a happy Independence Day to everyone.
That was creepy.
Yeah, I love that. That was creepy. All right, so how do we prepare for this, right? This whole concept of enterprise fire sale. And I'm not talking like we're going to have, streets and transportation. The movie thing I think is excessive, but I think what is realistic is to see something like this for, at the enterprise level, right? So obviously we're going to need to simulate some sort of a loss of control incident, right? Love war games. You can't have HackerCon without at least one war games reference, and I haven't seen one, so I'm contractually obligated to put this one in. So the question is, sit there and evaluate your enterprise. What features do you have in common with every single other enterprise? And I bet I've heard a statistic that 499 of the Fortune 500 run Active Directory. One of the Fortune 500 is Apple. Okay. So directory services, remote access, access controls, backups, anything of these things, like these are, even if you have like 5 or 6 vendor choices, it's still only 5 or 6 major vendor choices for that particular functionality in your network, right? And everybody's got it. Everybody's got VPN or remote of some sort. Everybody's got wireless of some sort. Everybody's got these same basic things. And since they are standard commoditized, they're discoverable, and there's things about them that are very interesting from an automation perspective. So, you gotta think, these things are gonna be the things that are targeted, right? So we need to somehow simulate that we lost control of these things and then figure out how we get that control back, right? So, remember what I said earlier about breaches being low and slow? Low and slow TTPs, like the attacker wants to evade. Well, yeah, that's not going to happen in this case, right? Because if this is going to be malware, it's going to be, a lot different, right? Because human adversaries are slow. When I come in and I'm working on an engagement, or my team works on an engagement, we have all this information that we get about the target, and then we make our decision to go do some certain thing, and then we get more information, and then we evaluate it, and we do it again. And this is, we like to consider ourselves, somewhat smart, but this is slow, right? Enterprise ransomware, if and when it happens, is going to be fast, mainly because it's going to be programmatic, right? Your code is not going to sit here and go, I wonder what's more ethical or what is going to please my boss more. It's going to, no, it's like, if X, do Y, right? So, if its goal is to, to lock out all the admins, and then take control and take hostage, these things, it can't be slow. Because if the indicators of compromise are successive and there's lots of time there, those IDSs that Dave talked about earlier that no one looks at until after the event, you're going to have enough time potentially to see that. So this is going to go really, really fast because otherwise it conflicts with the intention behind locking you all the way out. So let's just imagine you get an alert. You see DC sync detected inside your network. Who knows what DC sync is? I need an answer. I'm actually going to call on somebody. And by the way, the more participation we get, the faster we get to the party. How about that? I'm just kidding. Yeah, what would a bad guy use Active Directory synchronization for? To grab your creds, or to grab like maybe just one specific one. I can think of one really important one to grab. Can anyone think of one really important one? Kerberos, yeah, there we go. Good. Kerb TGT, right? So let's just say this is your list, right? This is your alert. Okay, you might be able to go and respond to this. That's probably human. What if this is your collection of events, right? DC sync, domain admin password reset, user removed from domain admin, group policy changes, alert, 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 all of this happening, and let's just say it's in a 60-second window because it's programmatic, right? Right? That's a totally different ballgame. So you're probably asking yourself, what, malware can actually do this? And I'm here to tell you, yes, actually every last component of what I'm talking about already exists in tools, or APIs, or segmented off things. So the only thing that's lacking for enterprise ransomware to actually take place and be a real thing that happens outside these doors is somebody just needs to make a cohesive product out of it. That's it. All the tools are out there. Glue them together. That's it. So here's some of the tools that are right on the precipice of doing this. Okay? Who's heard of Bloodhound? Anyone heard of Bloodhound? It's a great tool. Came out a couple years back. Somebody I know posted that on Twitter, really large network. If you're not familiar with Bloodhound, this is the goal of going from low privileges, is basically creating a graph. How do I traverse your network in order to get to domain admin? How do I get to that king of the hill scenario? Or it could be another target. You don't have to go for domain admin. A bad guy could use it to say, how do I go from this low privileged contractor laptop to head of HR or an HR analyst so I can go dump all your personnel records? It could be something like that. But in this scenario, we're talking about king of the hill. Bloodhound, right? Responder was talked about. This is another great tool. You drop it on the network, you do a bunch of stuff. It automates a whole heck of a lot. Crack Map Exec is another tool that's starting to automate a whole heck of a lot. There's another tool I saw at Black Hat Arsenal a couple years ago called Autodane. There's one reason why I've got this in here, and one reason alone. Besides the fact that it was a neat idea where he was trying to automate pen tests and get to the point where he can go from zero to exploiting common vulnerabilities, common password problems, and things like that, and get all the way to domain admin. At Black Hat Arsenal, I said, why did you call this Autodane? And the presenter said, because my name is Dane, and it automates me. And I was like, that's awesome, right? So I was like, all right, perfect name. So hat tip 2 years later. And there are several more under development right now. Even after I built these slide decks, like on Twitter just a couple weeks ago, in the last 2 weeks, I've seen people talking about new tools that are coming out that we're on the edge, like this summer, probably the Black Hat DEF CON timeframe, where people are going to take all the stuff we've already done and drop it out there. I heard about a tool that's announced that's going to go crawl that Bloodhound path for you and automate all of the steps. So you go run a Bloodhound passively, you create all that information, you craft that path, and then this thing does the needful to go hop through and get there, right? So back to Bob. We started with Bob, got to go back to Bob. The reason why I was thinking about Bob this day is like, hey man, when this happens, you're basically just outsourcing your IT job over here to these Cozy Bear, Fancy Bear people, right? This is what we're talking about. This is going to be the next thing where you're basically saying, hey, I'm not in control anymore. So, time for some rhetorical questions. Do not raise your hands. Do not blurt these out. They will be embarrassing. Blue team questions first. Have you ever practiced rotating your Curb TGT account after a golden ticket? I love the lone laughter. That's awesome. So yeah. And if you did actually do it, have you rotated it twice? Does anyone know why you need to rotate it twice? Once doesn't work. Why does once not work? Because you can use the old one. So this neat little thing, so when I go, when I say I mean the malicious adversary or the simulated adversaries on your network dumps the curb TGT hash, generates a golden ticket, which basically says, hey, for the next 20 years, I'm anybody I want to be in your environment, in your AD environment, right? If I go do that and you go and say, oh, I read somewhere, I rotate this curb TGT hash thing, Microsoft's got a PowerShell script out on their website, go pull it down, you run it. Haha, right? No, because this neat little thing is Kerberos actually works with the current hash and the n-1, so the previous hash. You got to have them both. Okay, so next question. Oh, by the way, the double bullet holes there, a colleague I know and another org lovingly refers to this as the double tap. So that's why that's on there. You got to do it twice. So how long between rotations, right? Is it seconds or hours? Why is that important? Right. If I'm the bad guy and I'm on your network and you go, haha, I rotated curb TGT. All right, gonna go home and I got to change control to do it again tomorrow. What? Do you think there's an actual persistent adversary in your environment and they can go and see this thing? Do you not think that they're watching your Windows event logs as well or better than you? Right? Do you not think that they are aware that your curb TGT hash just was, reset and they don't have the means because they're persistent and they're king of the hill, right? They don't have the ability to just go do it again, go pull the hash a second time, and now they are, you got them, you rotate it, now they went from n to n-1. Then they went and said, it rotated. Okay, I'm back to n. And the next day you come in, second change control request, we're going to do it again. You rotate it again, now they're n-1 again. They go, yeah, that was fun. Back to n. And you can see where this game goes, right? This is a problem. So it turns out you need to do this in seconds. You got to go bam, bam, real fast. That's why it's lovingly referred to as the double tap. It's got to go bam, bam. And here's the thing about this, right? This is just one example, but this will break legacy apps. If you got legacy apps in your environment that actually talk Kerberos, especially Unixy type things, non-Microsofty type things, then what will happen is their Kerberos tickets will suddenly be invalidated. But it turns out in almost every single case, you reboot that service or restart that service or that machine, whatever it is, it'll come back up and it'll go, hey, domain, okay, I want to do my Kerberos thing, and I'll log in and okay, I'm good again, right? So, if you haven't done this in your environment at all, go schedule a fire drill. Go do it in the lab first. Get it down in the lab. Get it to the point where you can go bam, bam, back and forth and know it's there. And guess what? You need to do it again in production because your lab will never match production. Nobody's lab ever matches production perfectly, right? Schedule during downtime. Take the risk that you're going to have a minor outage and figure out how to do it because you don't want to do it when it's too late. So, another rhetorical question. Do you know how to get back into, you fill in the blank here, it's an important system to you, System X, in a disaster? Right? Think about that. Is there anything in your environment that you know how to get back in? That your company would be in a really bad state if you were suddenly locked out. And this doesn't have to be even enterprise ransomware, right? You can be preparing for Bob the malicious admin that decides to go rogue because he didn't like his stock dividends or because he didn't get promoted and, whatever. It could be something really, really lame or he just goes nuts, right? So you got to fire him and then you're like, oh, well, Bob took the passwords with us and we don't know how to. This kind of thing happens. You see it in the news. So, do you know things like recovery modes for your applications, like directory services? And here's a better question. Can you do these things under pressure? It's one thing to go, the scenario I just talked about where we said, hey, schedule time, go as a team, in the lab, go do it here, no pressure, no big deal, because guess what? There's no trouble tickets, there's no screaming business users, right? You don't have people saying, you brought the entire business down because of blah, 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 when you're in the lab. It's nice and safe there. Definitely start there. But can you do these things under pressure? Can you do these things during off hours? Can you do it nights and weekends? Can you do it when your tech lead is on vacation? So the guy that actually knows all this stuff forwards and backwards, you rely on him, he's great, he's loyal to the company, he's going to be there till he's 95, right? He's not ever leaving, we're safe. Great. He's going to take vacation, right? At some point, or he's going to get sick or something. If he doesn't, you need to give him that so he actually stays till 95. So you need to be able to do it, and anybody, the junior admin needs to be able to follow a script, needs to be able to follow a playbook that's written out and documented someplace, right? These are just some examples. Obviously, you probably can come up with many, many more, but you need to think about things that are common, right? So VPNs, two-factor auth systems, web proxies, your Amazon EC2 instances, anything that would be basically a common feature present in any given enterprise, right? These are the types of things that would be a commoditized but enterprise-grade ransomware type of attack. This is where I think things are headed. So, for the red team side, have you simulated a king of the hill? Okay, don't just say, yeah, I got DA on the last test. You saw the report, right? You saw the screenshot? I got DA, I'm good, right? No, that's not it, right? That's not it. the question you got to ask is, were you fast or were you slow in your steps? Did you get it because you were really methodical and you were thinking kind of like, I'm going to bridge this gap. I'm going to, on the one side, I'm going to be the cozy bear guy that goes really slow, that fishes and gets the creds and then hops around and moves around the network and does all these things and privilege escalates and eventually gets the domain admin and then calls it good, because guess what? Remember, that's incongruent with probably what that threat actor you're simulating would really do. Remember? They're going to come in, they want to stay off the radar, they want to go nice and low and slow, and domain admin's not their goal, right? King of the enterprise is not their goal. Getting the data out, monetizing that data, and staying persistent in there so they have a revenue stream off your data. That is their goal, right? So don't mix this. So if you did it slow, you didn't do it right. Figure out how to do it fast. Specifically, did you do it fast enough to simulate ransomware? Well, guess what that probably means? In order to simulate code, you probably have to write code, right? You can't just like, I can type really fast and I'm just going to do these things really fast. You're going to have to write a script, or you're going to have to write malware. You're going to have to basically create this and actually to properly test your organization to make sure your org is ready. And so then after you've done that, then stop and think, did you consider all of the common enterprise infrastructure, or did you just hit AD because that's what all the cool kids are talking about these days? Did you look at all the other things that might be in your environment that might be in other customers' environments too? That's the kind of thing, right? And so just because I'm saying, hey, this might be the next big thing, this is not an excuse for the red teamers in the room to go and skip all the low and slow exercises. You still need to do all the low and slow. Because low and slow is still the most likely breach TTP, and I love that on Jason's graph, the cardio is the most important thing, right up there behind, all those other common things that kill you, and then terrorism's a tiny little thing. Enterprise ransomware is somewhere down that line, so obviously that low and slow persistent adversary is probably going to be a higher category than enterprise ransomware. But guess what? Once it happens, it's going to be everywhere. So just make sure, from the red team perspective, that you're working the high and fast into your rotation. So to recap, somehow one day I was sitting here thinking about this ransomware stuff. Remembered Bob from Verizon and his nice little scam of his six-figure. By the way, he did this in multiple companies. I don't know if you caught that detail. He actually did this scam on multiple companies simultaneously. I don't know where our feds are. Maybe they can tell me what happened to him. Unauthorized job outsourcing plus that whole APT 2829 Cozy Bear thing and the ransomware enterprise King of the Hill ransomware concept. This just made me think about all this. These are all things that we need to do to better simulate our adversaries. If you're lucky enough to have a red team in your organization, or you partner up with a good third party to come in and do this, make sure you're simulating something specific. You're goal oriented and you're thinking about this. Take this to a higher level of maturity. Don't just sit here and go, yeah, we're going to go just slam the network and we're just going to come in and pop in whatever. Make sure you're trying to actually, what your goal is. Is your goal to simulate one of these APTs, or are you trying to simulate something that's maybe more ransomware kind of thing oriented, right? So, and of course, these ransomware authors may one day figure out that your network is actually Julius Caesar, right? And you need to be ready to be the Julius Caesar in that story. And I'll leave that part up to you, how you go and find them and then take them back to Rome and crucify them. But that's your deal. So just remember that, like, at some point, there's going to be somebody clicking a little cat picture. That cat picture is going to result in some sort of a callback, right? Back to the command and control server. And that command and control server is going to look at this and go, hey man, this is a Fortune 500. It's a hospital. It's a manufacturer of some kind. It's something of value. It is not grandma's PC on her cable modem, right? Grandma's PC on her cable modem is worth $50 to me. The enterprise is worth considerably more, right? And so when that happens, you need to be ready for some very fast, some very aggressive TTPs, and not all this other stuff that we've seen in the past. Yeah, I think if Caesar were here, he'd probably use this phrase. Does anyone know what this means? Si vis pacem parabellum. Do we have any Latin buffs in the room? Yeah, close enough. So it's if you want peace, prepare for war. Yeah. I think if we were going to apply it here, we'd say if you want high availability in your business, prepare for enterprise ransomware. Right? So that's it. I got you out of here in 37 minutes, 150 slides. And you're all still awake. I didn't see anybody sleeping. So, all right. Do we have any questions, or anyone like to argue that, oh no, enterprises are never going to get hit with ransomware? Anything like that? I didn't think so. All right. And with that, Dave, are we wrapping? There we are. Hey, there's Dave.